walking free after years behind bars.
I know this day was going to come sooner or later.
A long and difficult fight.
To be able to bring out the truth and make it surface, to help someone that lost 16, 17 Christmases.
Uncovering new evidence and at times mistakes. You will hear from advocates, investigators, and legal teams on the front lines.
I really think it's us really holding ourselves accountable to really right wrongs if there have been wrongs in the criminal justice system.
And from those in their journey, from prison to freedom. Hi, South Florida. I'm Constance Jones. Tonight, we share the story of a South Florida man savoring his freedom after spending 17 years behind bars for a crime that he swore the whole time he did not commit. In the summer of 2006, 19-year-old Emmanuel Jean was brimming with hope, ready to start college. But his promising future was flipped upside down when he was arrested for a North Miami Beach convenience store murder. A mother finally reunited with her son, Emmanuel Jean, now 37 years old. Released after nearly 17 years behind bars, holding out to hope for this moment.
Hallelujah!
That day you got released, what was going through your mind?
I felt like an avatar with no legs, floating.
Before we get to here, we have to start here. There's Emmanuel Jean, number 11, darting across the football field. At the time, he was just 19 years old, a rising star with big dreams. Even now, he lights up at the mention of his days playing ball.
At 5'8", I was able to dominate a receiver that was 6'4", 6'6", because I actually studied him.
Jean grew up in North Miami Beach as a part of an immigrant Haitian family. Times were often tough, he says, and sometimes he was mixed in with the wrong crowd. As a teenager, he says he was arrested for a drug charge and referred to a special rehabilitation school, then called Bay Point. It was there that he crossed paths with attorney Joseph Clark, a connection that would prove significant in his life.
He was in one of my classes, so I got close to him and his family.
Clark, who volunteered at the school, says Emmanuel's dedication earned him a full scholarship to play college football in Santa Clarita, California, until one day his dreams came to a sudden halt.
He was on his way to Southern California, was about 2 days away from getting on the plane when he got arrested.
Emmanuel was taken into custody, accused of robbing and killing a store owner in North Miami Beach. The victim, 60-year-old Mohammed Ayobo, a Saudi Arabian immigrant and father of 4, was shot during a struggle, according to prosecutors. Clark says the case against Emmanuel was flimsy. No gun, no DNA. But prosecutors moved forward, arguing Emmanuel was there that night with another 19-year-old and 16-year-old who was described as a getaway driver. That 16-year-old did not witness the crime, but he testified against Emmanuel, according to court filings. Prosecutors said Emmanuel initially admitted to being at the scene, and there were independent witnesses who tied him to the crime. In a deposition, one of them identified him as the gunman in a photo. That witness did the same when he came face-to-face with Emmanuel in court. He was later sentenced to life in prison for first-degree murder. But roughly 17 years later, he walked out of prison as a free man. A Miami-Dade judge threw out his murder conviction after new evidence raised questions about the reliability of key testimony used to convict him. Emmanuel agreed to plead guilty to a less serious charge, conspiracy to commit robbery. We also contacted the Ayobo family, that's the victim's family. They believe that Emmanuel is guilty and that the judge made a mistake, telling us in part that they were never consulted or asked to provide a statement about the impact of this decision. And they went on to say it is shocking and horrible what he, Emmanuel, did. He is a menace and he belongs behind bars for life. Full stop. Next, we look into why the evidence against Emmanuel came into question, including the work of the lead detective of the case.
Detective Hill is no longer a member of the North Miami Beach Police Force.
It's a story that captured both local and national media attention in 2011.
I said, hold up. That's the detective on my case.
While awaiting trial on a first-degree murder charge, Emmanuel Jean sees a TV news report about the lead detective on his case.
And it was talking about the situation that he had going on, the affair.
Then, North Miami Beach detective Ed Hill entangled with a scandal after he admitted to having a fling with the wife of another man he was investigating for murder, a confession he made in a deposition and an internal affairs investigation. Prosecutors ended up dropping the charges in that case after they discovered the Miranda rights form was forged. It was a red flag for Emmanuel, who couldn't help but wonder about the investigation of his own case.
It was something that just didn't sit well with me, so I always had it in my mind.
Emmanuel also got access to the court records of two young men who were charged in the same murder as he was.
That's how I received the information about Detective Hill.
He says he learned prosecutors removed Hill as a state witness. Still, years passed. It wasn't until 2021 when other allegations of misconduct came to light when Emmanuel's family hired private investigator Carlos Fuentes.
He gave me some ideas on some witnesses that he just felt when they testified they were very uncomfortable. And that's usually a key sign.
Later, we'll show you what he was able to uncover. Emmanuel told us that he got an idea of hiring a private investigator at the prison library after hearing another inmate talk about how valuable it could be. He also got the court records of the other young men charged in this case, and that's how he was able to discover that Detective Hill had been removed as a state witness. Now, Hill declined to comment in this case because of a pending lawsuit that was filed by Emmanuel just last year. Now, he hasn't commented publicly since the crime, but shortly after the murder, Detective Hill called Emmanuel and his co-defendants a danger to society. Hill is now a private investigator himself. Now, you may be wondering what happened to the other young men who were also charged in the case. Well, both ended pleading guilty to second-degree murder and robbery charges. They also served less than 10 years in prison. The National Registry of Exonerations, a project involving different universities, recorded more than 140 exonerations in 2024. Now, at least 3 of those cases were right here in our state. Wrongful convictions can have devastating consequences. But in South Florida, there are programs in place working to right the wrongs of the criminal justice system. I spoke to the Broward State Attorney, Harold Pryor, about the work at the Conviction Review Unit in his office. Sidney Holmes was convicted in 1989, sentenced to 400 years in prison for a crime he did not commit, and was later exonerated of.
I know this day was going to come, sooner or later.
Through a meticulous investigation using advances in DNA testing and witness reassessments, the Broward Conviction Review Unit was able to prove his innocence. Broward State Attorney Harold Pryor shares his reflections on the day Holmes walked out of prison in March of 2023, more than 33 years from the date of his conviction.
He said to me when we had the conversation, when he was released on that day, he said, "Harold, I have no ill feelings towards the prosecutor that prosecuted me or the law enforcement officers that were involved. I forgive them, and I just want to ensure that this doesn't happen to anyone else ever again."
Holmes' incredible journey fueling the mission at the unit, inspiring their continued pursuit of justice. His case, however, a stark reminder of the deeper issues within the system, massive failures that can lead to devastating consequences.
I really think it's us really holding ourselves accountable.
Former state attorney Michael Satz launched the program in September of 2019. Since its inception, the Conviction Review Unit has received roughly 410 inquiries as of this year. Currently, 56 petitions remain active, each at different stages of review. 190 cases have been closed after determining the original verdict was correct.
They oftentimes operate independently within the office.
The unit includes attorneys, investigators, and partnerships with organizations such as the Innocence Project and Southern Poverty Law Center. Part of this collaborative work is supported with grant money from the U.S. Department of Justice, funds used to screen and investigate potential cases.
Ask the questions that should have been asked, or to do the work and some of the investigative work that needs to be done to actually look at these cases and ultimately see that maybe we got it wrong.
Well, 2 people have been exonerated in the last 4 years. State Attorney Pryor has arranged for OIC of South Florida, which is a nonprofit organization, to help Holmes make a successful return to freedom and to provide him with reintegration services. That includes job training and job placement. A few months ago, we had the opportunity to visit this organization and see firsthand the work that they do.
I just did 18 and a half years behind a wall, a gate.
Gary Johnson was released from prison late last year, but his journey hasn't been easy.
Everything that I thought and practiced for while I was incarcerated wasn't the same when I got out.
Gary has gotten help from OIC, which stands for Opportunities Industrialization Centers. He's now focused on building a better future for himself and his family.
My main goal right now is to just stay focused, get me a good job, build myself so I can go ahead and start my own career.
OIC of South Florida wants to make a difference in the lives of people like Gary. CEO Newton Sannon has been at the helm for 23 years.
And our flagship work has always been working with returning citizens, men and women from our communities who justly have been incarcerated for a set period of time.
OIC is helping people build skills and assist them while they're looking for jobs, often focused on construction and IT positions, including AI-driven job opportunities.
So we're getting out in front of making sure our folks have all the requisite skills in the IT AI space so they make sure they're a part of that wave of opportunity.
Sannon says housing is a big issue for people they help.
It's hard because if you try to say, well, I'll get you a job, and they need an address to get an application to send back, et cetera, but they don't have anywhere to stay, there's an issue there. So a lot of barriers for us to navigate.
Sannon says despite the hurdles, they say they have a success rate as high as 90% when it comes to job placement. And Gary is on the path of becoming one of those inspiring success stories. His advice to others navigating similar challenges is straightforward, yet powerful. What advice would you give to them? Motivation would you give to them?
I'll tell them to stay focused, don't give up, and just take your time. Yes, people will help you. There's a lot of programs that will get you to the right spot. Just don't give up and just don't give up. That's what I advise them to. And just keep focused.
For more information on OIC of South Florida, go to NBC6.com. It's a place of second chances, and for many, it's the very first step towards a brighter future. Coming up, the breakthrough that changed everything. The man Emmanuel's family hired to uncover the truth shares what happened when he came face to face with a key witness in his case. And we hear from Dr. Desmond Meade, his journey from prison to international recognition, and his work in restoring voting rights for thousands of Floridians. Welcome back. Emmanuel Jean was 19 years old when he was accused of murdering a father, a convenience store owner. For years, he told anyone that would listen that he didn't do it. He stayed in prison for nearly 2 decades until his case broke open. His family decided to hire a private investigator. A few months ago, we spoke to that man whose efforts helped secure Emmanuel's freedom. The heartwarming reunion made possible by this man, Private Investigator Carlos Fuentes.
To be able to bring out the truth and make it surface, to help someone that lost 16, 17 Christmases. And the family lost somebody as well.
In 2020, Emmanuel Jean's family rallied together, saving every penny they could to hire Fuentes. He says his mission was clear: uncover the truth and fight for justice. His first step:
he gave me some ideas on some witnesses that he just felt when they testified they were very uncomfortable. And that's usually a key sign.
Both eyewitnesses was consistent with their body language. They both gave me this vibration where they didn't want to be there.
So it was the private investigator that got the information from the witness who then recanted his statement.
Exactly.
Fuentes tracked down that witness, and to his surprise, he was ready to speak, recanting the story he first told police nearly 17 years ago in this affidavit.
He was like, I was hoping that somebody would come speak to me about this matter because I'm holding this in, and I can't live with myself.
That witness wrote that former North Miami Beach police detective Ed Hill, here in this unrelated NBC6 report, pressured him to identify Emmanuel Jean as the suspect in the 2013 shooting death of a convenience store owner. The witness says that Detective Hill was giving him hidden innuendos, insinuating how much evidence they had, and continued to embellish a specific photograph, which he ended up choosing. He went on to say that the guilt over his testimony haunted him for years, writing, "I was apprehensive to come forward knowing that I testified against an innocent man."
The first witness was key.
That witness told a judge he recanted his original testimony. In this powerful moment, Emmanuel thanked that witness in court for finally coming forward. Tell us your feeling at that moment.
All glory go to God, man. I prayed for this moment.
Other witnesses also testified that Emmanuel didn't kill the store owner. So this time, Emmanuel got a big win. A judge reversed his murder conviction after he made a deal with prosecutors and agreed to plead guilty to a less serious charge. The family of Mohammed Ayobo, the victim, says they are appalled by the judge's decision, and they were never consulted. Writing in part, Emmanuel belongs behind bars for life, full stop. Emmanuel was released after serving nearly 17 years behind bars.
When you're so used to failing, it becomes something that you're accustomed to. So when you get good news like that, it's far-fetched.
At the time, prosecutors said Emmanuel was at the scene and that witnesses tied him to the crime. Both Hill and the city's representative declined to comment because of a federal lawsuit Emmanuel filed last year, and that case is pending. In the lawsuit, Emmanuel alleges police misconduct and systematic failures played a role in his conviction. A man once sentenced to life in prison, now working as a paralegal, determined to build a brighter future.
Oh yeah, I'm drenched in it. I'm drenched in the wind. Being around Papa Joe, you got no choice but to be drenched in it.
Papa Joe is attorney Joe Clark, a mentor for Emmanuel since he was a teenager.
He was in one of my classes, so I got close to him and his family.
That's it right there.
Nearly 2 decades later, he is representing his former student in a federal lawsuit he filed earlier last year against the city of North Miami Beach, its former police chief, and the lead detective in Emmanuel's case, Ed Hill. The lawsuit accuses Hill of lying to witnesses and coercing them to testify against Emmanuel, adding he was the driving force behind his false arrest and prosecution. Clark points to the testimony of the witness who identified Emmanuel as the shooter.
He put in the affidavit that the only way he was able to identify him in court was that he was the kid sitting next to the defense lawyer.
According to court documents, that witness recanted his story when he was contacted by Emmanuel's private investigator, writing that he felt pressured by Hill.
There's plenty of fine police officers out there that do their job without having to cross that line.
The lawsuit also claims city officials ignored Hill's, quote, history of corruption and lack of credibility.
So you have to show, to be able to sue the department, that the upper level of the department knew about the practices that were going on. Well, in our case, I mean, it's textbook. We know that they know. It was in the newspaper.
The lawsuit also points to this NBC6 investigation, which uncovered North Miami Beach police officers were using mugshots of black teenagers for target practice, including this one of Emmanuel at 14 when he was arrested for trespassing. Evidence, the lawsuit claims, proves Haitian American teenagers were targeted by Hill and other officers even before the murder happened.
They have to be held accountable for what they do.
An attorney for the city of North Miami Beach declined to comment because of the pending lawsuit. A judge ruled in favor of a city's motion to dismiss the case, but Emmanuel can still refile his complaint, and his attorney tells us they're looking into their options. A judge previously dismissed the case against Hill and the former police chief because they were not served by the required deadline. Both declined to comment. How many people in Florida can say they've been named one of Time magazine's 100 most influential people, awarded the MacArthur Genius Grant, and had their organization nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize? Well, Dr. Desmond Meade can. His journey from prison to international recognition is not just inspiring, it's changing lives. He opens up about his story and his work in restoring rights for thousands of returning citizens. You have been on the front of Time magazine. You have really been the face of change when it comes to conversations about our returning citizens and their rights in society. Tell us what really prompted your interest and the motivation for the work that you do.
Well, thank you for that question. You know, my work really started literally August of 2005. At that time, I was homeless. I was addicted to drugs. I was recently released from prison, right? Didn't have a job. And the only thing I owned were the clothes on my back. And I checked myself into a substance abuse treatment facility. And after completing a 4-month in-house program, I was able to move back into a homeless shelter. And while there, I decided to enroll at Miami-Dade College. And after enrolling in Miami-Dade College, I acquired a few degrees, eventually ended up at Florida International University College of Law, which in 2014 of May, I was able to obtain a Juris Doctorate degree. And in that process, start an organization, my current organization, Florida Rights Restoration Coalition.
For those who may not know what Amendment 4 is or was and what it did for restoring rights to our citizens, can you speak to that and clarify it for those who may not know?
Yeah, so Amendment 4 at that time in 2018 was a constitutional amendment initiative that basically restored voting rights to anyone who has previously been convicted of a felony offense, with the exception of those who were convicted of murder or any felony sexual offenses. And so once a person has completed their sentence, that they would immediately have the right to vote restored to them. We showed that we don't have to degrade each other. We don't have to attack each other to actually move a major policy issue. That night when Amendment 4 passed, we showed that love can, in fact, win the day.
What are some of the biggest challenges that we are facing today, and especially with the work that you're doing with your organization?
When we passed Amendment 4, Florida legislature inserted itself and mandated that folks would have to pay their what we call legal financial obligations. And that's like court fines, court costs, court fees, and even restitution prior to being able to be eligible to vote or register to vote. The problem was, at the time, the state of Florida could not consistently inform an individual as to how much they owe. And so on one hand, they're saying you can't vote until you pay your debts. But on the other hand, they're saying, but we don't know how much you owe. And that created a conundrum. In addition to that, our systems were definitely antiquated. And there were cases in which local supervisor of elections were issuing voter identification cards to people who clearly was not eligible to be registered to vote. And so we had folks that were getting these voter registration cards and acting on them, and only for years later now getting arrested or facing another felony offense or the threat of actually going back to prison. And that created a chilling impact on people.
Can you explain the importance of voting to people who maybe feel like their voices don't matter?
When you look at it, that's the most important right that any American citizen can have. Then on the other side, we have people who've been impacted by the criminal justice system that for one reason or another, right, are uninformed. They're like across the country, there are about 19 million people who are eligible to register to vote, and they're not registered because they assume that they can't vote. When people ask me that question, I always go back to when I was first released, right? And someone approached me and asked me, would I want to register to vote, or am I planning on voting in an election? And I realized that it's during elections, right, that people who have been impacted by the criminal justice system are meant to feel like they're not a part of society, right? It's not during Christmas or Valentine's Day or any other holiday, but during elections, that's the one time that society looks at us and say that we're not good enough to have our voices heard, that we're not a part of society. And that is a very painful feeling, right? And many times we cover that pain up with an indifference towards voting, right? And that's an illusion, right? And so I knew that there were so many of people just like me who wanted to be a part. Like, it's a basic human nature to want to be a part of something bigger, to want to be a part of the bigger group, right? And voting rights was a very key element in that. We are running a program called our Fines and Fees Waiver Program, in which we are engaging with attorneys across the state of Florida who are volunteering their time pro bono to help people who are trying to find out whether or not they're eligible to vote, or who are trying to navigate the legal financial obligations obstacles, right? And we're getting them in the courts, and we're getting their fines and fees either waived or converted to community service hours. And so they can reach out to us on social media, the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. They can also hit us up online on our website at FloridaRRC.com, and that's FloridaRRC.com. And there they'll have opportunities to volunteer and as well as to donate.
You can see additional content about these stories on NBC6 digital platforms. Thank you for watching our special From Prison to Freedom. I'm Constance Jones.